your host, Kim Davis, and I am super excited to be with you today. There are so many things happening in the world of sports, and so we're going to have a lot of fun today. Kris Gardner of the Houston Roundball Review is going to join us shortly, and because we're going to talk some basketball. I mean, we always get basketball in, but there is so much happening in the world of basketball, and let's see if I can clean my glasses so that I can see you all so much better. We're going to talk about that. Of course, in the National Football League, the season continues to, forge ahead. And a few things, as I said, kind of in the intro to this show, are true. One is that, that's so much better. One of the things that's true is that the Houston Texans was a bad idea to trade DeAndre Hopkins. If you didn't think it before, after the highlight reel, one of the plays of the year, if not the play of the year, Hail Mary touchdown he caught from Kyler Murray to finish off the come from behind win against Buffalo on Sunday, is one of those, right? That's the thing. The other thing is, it was a bad move for the Texans to trade DeAndre Hopkins. We've been saying that. Everyone said it. It's really, really the truth. And it was a great move by the Cardinals to be the team that got DeAndre Hopkins for David Johnson and a couple picks. So while David Johnson was banged up on Sunday, DeAndre Hopkins was making not just highlight reels, drawing praise from his, colleagues around the league, but just people across sport in general. Like, man. So that's one thing we know. We also know this Houston Texans team has a lot to figure out in terms of who's going to run the team, in terms of putting a team together as a general manager, who's going to coach the team. There's so many unanswered questions, and I don't think that we're any closer to having those answered. So that's something. How do they get through the rest of the year? Do they start to bench starters and see who they have behind them? Let's see how some of these younger guys can play. Is that then you're saying, hey, we've thrown in the towel. This season is really a wash, and let's see how we start to build toward 2021. You still have, coaches who want to win. You have players that are competitive, although it looks like to some people that, they've thrown in the towel. I think all those guys are professionals, and on some level, certainly they're disappointed with the way things have gone this season. In the past game on Sunday, when they went into Cleveland, they were in that game. I mean, if your defense holds the other team to 10 points, that's good enough to win. But your offense has got to score more than 10. Having some real issues with the kicker. He has fallen short in recent games. So there's just a lot. Okay, so that's what we know about the Texans. We know that the Pittsburgh Steelers, the undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers, are really good. The Tampa Bay might be the best team in the NFC. We don't know. The Saints have some real problems. And Seattle is not as good as we thought they were because they can't stop anybody. So those are some of the things that we know about the National Football League. And in basketball, right, which I'm excited to talk to you about basketball. And I'm going to play a clip because the NBA season is starting shortly. In December, they'll start back playing. We talked recently here on this program. We'll let you hear from the Houston Rockets' new head coach, Stephen Silas. And in the last week, we've heard that Russell Westbrook wants out. Now we're hearing that James Harden has really strongly asked for a trade. He wants to go to the Nets and play with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. And I want to talk about what that would look like. But also, here's the deal. The Houston Rockets have those players under contract. James Harden has 2 more years on his deal. So it's not quite like the Anthony Davis situation. He, can't just go. Like, they would have to, and I would think that if the Rockets were going to make a trade, make a deal for James Harden, it would have to be something you got to get some firepower back. You got to get a superstar, or you have to get a star, because James Harden is a superstar, young player, and you got to get some really good draft picks. But you got to get an exciting young player, really talented, that star level. And I don't know that the Nets have that to give. So what we're going to do is I want you to listen to, hey, good morning, Carolyn. I don't mean to ignore you. Welcome to Chalk Talk. Always glad to have you with me. Good morning. Good morning. Hope that you had a great weekend and that your week is off to a great start. Let's let me let you hear from a story that ran earlier today with Woj, who's the guy that first broke this story.
In the NBA, and yesterday was a wild day. It kicked off when the Thunder traded Chris Paul to the Suns for a package that includes Kelly Oubre, Ricky Rubio, Ty Jerome, and a 2022 first-round pick. So we had that deal. Then the Bucks and the reigning back-to-back
Giannis, adding some major pieces as they traded for Dru Holiday, and they did a sign and trade with Sacramento for Bogdan Bogdanovic. So they get better. And then James Harden, here's the headline, turned down an extension from the Rockets that would have been worth around $50 million. Harden is reportedly looking to join KD and Kyrie Irving in Brooklyn. And look who it is. It's been far too long since we've seen Adrian Wojnarowski, our insider extraordinaire. Woj, let's talk about Harden. What is the very latest on his desire to join up with KD and Kyrie in Brooklyn?
Well, Greeny, as you said, we reported that he turned down that extension. He's got 2+ years left on his deal, so it would have been an added on, and he would have become the league's first $50 million a year player. He may still do that at some point if he gets traded and signs an extension elsewhere, or decides to do it in Houston at some point. But he would like to be with the Nets. He feels as though that the championship window to win in Houston with this group has passed. But right now, there has been contact between the Rockets and the Nets, I'm told, but no real substantive talks. The Rockets have the ability here to play this out, try to repair this relationship. Different than the Anthony Davis situation. He was in the final year of his contract. He still has 2 years left in Houston, Harden does. And so there's not an urgency to move on this for the Rockets, and they're not acting with urgency in terms of trying to find a deal for James Harden, and that includes in Brooklyn.
Do the Nets have the kind of package to offer if they choose to that would make the Rockets interested?
That remains to be seen, Greeny. I think the Rockets, if you're going to trade a player of James Harden's caliber, there's got to be one dynamite knockout asset. That's either maybe a young all-star player, maybe a draft pick or multiple picks, but a pick that might be at the very top of the draft. That's not what the Nets have to offer. They might have picks that probably would be in the 20s based on a very good Nets team. They have good young players, very good, but not star-level guys. And so right now, this isn't a potential package that has the Rockets wanting to rush into it. How difficult will James Harden, if at all, will he make it on the Rockets through in the next weeks, months? Does he create a scenario where they have to move him? That's one way to do it as a player, but right now, the Rockets still would like to work it out with him.
All right, so it doesn't sound like this is necessarily imminent. Meanwhile, let's talk about Milwaukee. They add.
All right, so we're going to pass on to Milwaukee right now. I'm going to bring in my special guest that I mentioned at the top of the show, Kris Gardner from the Houston Roundball Review. Nope, you can't hear me? I don't know. You can't hear me. Okay, I don't hear Woj. So Woj is off. Can you hear me? I see you. I don't know why we have some of these challenges. Let me see. So I think I can hear you, Kris. Can you hear me? I hear you moving stuff. You did something that makes me hear you more. Can you hear me now? Okay, I'm going to do this while he's figuring that out. Okay, let's see, here we go. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
That is weird.
Yeah.
That setup I had before was how I first connected with you years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't know. I asked, I said, have you guys changed something? They said, oh, everything's the same. I said, well, you're making it tough for my guest. And he's been on the show before. Good morning. How are you, my friend? Thank you for coming in.
I'm doing great. Oh, no problem. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. So obviously you want to talk some basketball. And so this thing started kind of steamrolling pretty fast, right? First, we heard last week that Russ wasn't happy. He wanted out. And then we're like, oh, maybe that wasn't true. But it's like, no, there seems to be some rumblings that he's not happy with maybe management moves. And then 2 days ago or yesterday, we started hearing really about James Harden wanting out. And then we hear, no, it's a real deal. He wants to go to the Nets. Your thoughts about, we'll just start with the overall state of the Rockets.
The Rockets are a mess. When D'Antoni left and Darryl left, they became a mess. The way they left, I mean, the mess, I guess, started when House left Orlando in the bubble for reasons that may never be known publicly. So they're a mess. I don't like how this is all being handled for new coach Stephen Silas, new GM Rafael Stone. I hate that for them. Give them a chance to see if they can make you happy. And if they can't, then we'll look at trades in March or whatever the deadline is going to be for this truncated season. But doing it now, and right now, if I'm the Rockets, unless the team blows me away, I might trade either one of them. Y'all, the check's still clear. Y'all still get paid. We'll figure it out as we go along. But right now, unless the team gives us what we want, sorry, not sorry.
I tend to agree with you on that. Because here's the thing, you really can't give up a player before we go any further, we have to also say the reports are that the Houston Rockets offered an extension to James Harden, which would make him he would be making $50 million a year, 2-year extension worth $50 million a year. And he's like, nah, I'm good. Keep your extra $100 million. I'm out.
Must be nice.
I don't know. Wow. So I guess it's saying that he wants to win. But here's the thing. The thing that's it's really curious to me. And so I've listened to some players around the league say, oh no, or some people who say some insiders say they have all the respect in the world for Stephen Silas. It's not about him. And so what is it about? Is it because they wanted John Lucas? Because I'm hearing that they wanted it to be John Lucas to be the coach. He's still going to be there. Steve Silas, you and I were both there when they introduced him, said that he's got a long history with Lucas and he's going to depend on him heavily and he's excited to have him on the staff. What is it? Is it a Tillman issue? I'm like, what is the real deal in terms of, is it they really mad about D'Antoni being gone? I mean, what do you think it is, Kris?
It's all of those things. I think James isn't happy. D'Antoni allowed James to flourish and become a megastar with his offense. The ball is in your hands 85% of the time. You do what you want to do. Yeah. I've heard the same thing about, they wanted Luke. Luke's still on staff. I've heard they don't like Tillman. My thing about ownership, so what? The owner, as long as you spell my name right on the check, I don't care what you think about me. Because, Kim, we all know and polls indicate that the majority of owners in pro sports don't agree with you politically. That didn't bother you before. You didn't hate them then. So as long as you pay me on the 1st or 15th or the 1st of the month or whatever my check arrangement is, I don't care what you think. I'm here for my coaches and my teammates. We're going to win a championship, and then you can fake it and be off, fake about, we're so glad we did it for you. No, you didn't. No, I don't care about ownership like that. Give Stephen Silas a chance to win, to show you he can make it work. If not, then see it down the line, and then you can go your own way.
I had a coach say to me on yesterday or day before yesterday. He said, it's really he said this to me. He said they were okay being mediocre with Daryl Morey and Mike D'Antoni, and now you've got Raphael and you've got Steven Silas, and now it's a huge issue. And I had to stop and say, he said, as a coach, we deal with that too, and that's unfortunate. I remember, Kris, I was covering the Rockets back when they won championships, and right before winning championships, that means I covered them also when Don Chaney was the head coach and had been Defensive Player of the Year, and he got a lot of pushback from guys on the team like Akeem, who welcomed Rudy T with open arms. That's not a knock on Rudy, but there is something to that. There's something to it. And so I don't know. I think it's unfortunate.
We can say that, we as in people who look like us, because we experience it and we know it's reality. Other folks who don't look like us refuse to accept it as a possibility. It's real.
Yeah.
Players treat coaches who look like them differently when they become the head coach. They are all chummy with them when they're assistant coach. They can talk to them and chop it up all day long. When they move to that head seat, oh, well, I'm not going to work as hard for you as I did for
and I just hate that in 2020, in this heightened, time of realization about the society we live in, that there are some things that still haven't caught up, and that's disheartening, right?
Agreed.
I just think that's just disheartening.
I mean, this talk wasn't about them wanting out before Steven Silas was head coach. Right. When they were doing the search, there was nothing about, well, I'm not happy here. I don't like the offense. We don't even know what the offense is going to be yet. Give Steven Silas a chance to have training camp and put it in and install it. See if it works. All this stuff. And then they come out and say, and I heard Steven Jackson, talk about it's not Steven Silas, it's management. You're playing for the coach. You're playing for your teammates.
But it's the same management that was here last year.
And you didn't have a problem with them then. You didn't have any problem with them. You didn't tell me what's in charge then. Tim wrote your name, signed a name on those checks last year. Tad Brown is still in charge. You have a problem with him all of a sudden now too?
But here's the other thing. I heard that Steven Jackson, I heard that piece of their podcast, and they were like, it's just not a time where you can make these kinds of moves and players are included. And that's not the truth. We don't have any reason to believe that they didn't have conversations with Russell and James about the direction they were going. I have heard the exact opposite. They may not have liked the decision, but they were definitely included in the conversation. Is that your understanding as well?
I mean, that's what I've heard. I mean, if ownership, and really this is Tad Brown because he's been here the longest, longer than Tillman, all of a sudden this year is the year they don't talk to James Harden about what they're going to do. They included him in every other thing for the previous 8 years. So this year, this summer, no, James, no, we're not going to talk to him at all. If they did that, that's asinine. Right. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but if it did, boy, that is just ridiculously stupid. So yeah. I don't know who Stephen S. Jackson's talking to, and Kendrick Perkins, those guys. I'm not downing them, but if that's the case, wow, that just is then really, truly shame on Tad Brown and shame on Tillman and Rockets management.
But now, didn't the day that they announced and we got a chance to talk with Steven Silas, didn't he say that he had?
He did say he talked to him. Yes,
he said he talked to them.
Mm-hmm.
And at any rate, so here's the other thing: the organization. There's a lot of things that make you kind of say, "What is going on?" The way Daryl Morey left, and then took another job, right?
Quickly.
Clearly, it wasn't he was taking a break and wanted more time with his family. He just didn't want to work with this team anymore for whatever that reason was. We understand Mike D'Antoni chunking in the deuces with the end of the season after the way that they treated him last year. I get it.
Yes.
So that was not a big surprise that he decided I would rather be an assistant coach someplace else or not coach at all than work for this organization. But that's not new. We've known that since the day after they were defeated and lost to the Lakers in the playoffs. So I just really wonder what's at the heart of all this. I still would love to know the real story about why Daryl Morey left.
Yes, I do too.
I'm really curious about why he decided to leave. And here's the other thing. So let's talk about this for the Rockets. They did make a move yesterday. They're reportedly trading Robert Covington to bring Trevor Ariza back, and he got one or two first-round draft picks. Two picks?
2 first-round picks,
A 21 and a 22. 20 and 21.
20 and
21. What are your thoughts about that, moving on from Robert Covington and bringing Trev back?
I think it's a great deal because of the picks involved. Robert Covington is a solid player, but Robert Covington has bounced around the league a lot. For whatever reason, not the right fit, because his contract is very easily moved. He's a good guy, good locker room guy, all those things. But they got 2 first-round draft picks and Trevor Ariza. The contracts are the same, and Trevor's contract ends next summer. So I think it's a great deal for the Rockets. In the first time in 5-6 years, they're going to have a first-round. Well, as of right now, as things stand, and Portland will pick for them, and then the trade will announce it later on. The draft rights will be shifted to the Rockets. I'm kind of curious who the Rockets will ask Portland to select for them in tomorrow's draft. But, and with this move, as things stand right now, we'll have a Rockets Zoom call Wednesday night. Could be late, because on draft nights when the Rockets do have media calls, there's sometimes 11, 12 o'clock at night on draft night when they used to come out and talk to the media about who they selected and things of that sort. So I think it's a very good move for Rafael Stone, his first move in the GM chair of getting 2 picks and a player for Covington. I think that's great. It's a solid move for Portland. Robert helps their defense. But, Robert Covington's not going to make the earth shake because they got rid of him. They got 2 draft picks for him.
I'm with you. I thought it was a great first move for Rafael, for him to get, because that's the thing. The Rockets have been devoid of a first-round pick. And so they could get a player that, depending on how they use it, that could come in and help them, right?
Mm-hmm.
That could come in and help them. And so good for him for that. We all know Trevor Ariza. We know who he is. Personally, we all like him. I mean, he's solid on defense. Mm-hmm. He knows the guys that are here. What are we making of the idea that Russell Westbrook wants out? And I will say this, that I had heard some rumblings from that, like the Rockets definitely, of course they're publicly saying we want both of our stars. They definitely want to keep James Harden, but they had been looking to see what they could get for possibly Russell previously, because they just weren't sure that he's the right fit for this organization. And he make a lot of money.
Shocking. You don't know that last year? I mean, the majority of people, when they traded for Russell last summer, were like, how's Russ going to fit into this offense? Russ isn't a three-point shooter. The things Russ does great don't fit with the Rockets style. So it needed a season to realize, wow, maybe Russ doesn't fit here. No kidding. That doesn't mean Russ is not a great player. He doesn't fit this system. So if they can, and right now, word is, there are not a whole lot of offers for Russ.
Well, you have to understand, you and I understand, it will change, but Russ has a big contract. I mean, he's got what, 40 million guaranteed, 38 to 40 million guaranteed.
He's got roughly the same contract that James has, 2 years left, plus the player option, which 43, 44 in the third year, which everybody knows they're going to accept. They're not going to turn down $40 million in their guaranteed contract.
Right.
But it shows you the status of what people think of Russ and James in the league. James is a top 5, top 7, top 10 player. Russ ain't. Russ is still good for what he does, but when you terms of the contract, and Russ coming off an injury, he had the COVID, and that did take something away from him. And if Russ wants to be the man somewhere, okay, send him somewhere, but get something back for him of solid value. And it probably won't be dollar for dollar value because of his huge contract and his style of play.
Yeah.
Russ, the way he plays is so hard, aggressive, and so relentless. At some point, his body will continue to decline, and then you really will see him fall off a cliff, possibly because of the way he plays.
Well, one of the teams I heard that he had I don't know if he had an interest, but that one of the early teams I heard was the Clippers. I'm like, well, would he want to go there and play with Pat Bev? Because he clearly doesn't like him.
Oh, well, I would think that Pat will be one of the players coming back to the Rockets. But oh my goodness, Pat Bev and Russ do not get along. And good for them, because I think you were there that home game when Russ told us that Pat be tricking us. Kim, that video clip I have on my YouTube channel continues to blow up. I mean, people still watch that clip, and it's not even 2 minutes long.
I need to pull mine back, because he said, man, he got y'all fooled. He ain't doing nothing but running around.
Pat be tricking y'all, man. I mean, that's what Russ said. And oh my goodness. So no, they do not get along at all. So I would definitely believe that if they pull that off, Pat Bell would be included in the deal, because there's no way. I mean, Russ would like to go home, play for the Clippers. I mean, sure, why not play for his man Ty Lue? But then Ty Lue's the head coach. The scenario is similar there, because Ty Lue looks like us. So what's the difference between Ty Lue there and Steven Silas here? You want to play with Ty Lue, but
Ty's got a championship. Maybe they feel like he's achieved a certain status, and that's a different. That's different, I'd like to give Russ a little more credit in that regard, just based on his history, his given, his agent, he moves a little differently than James,
True. Mm-hmm.
But it just does make you kind of scratch your head, and you hate to have these conversations and wonder, like what it really is. What it really is. I feel bad, I don't feel too bad, because they're professionals and they're being compensated and they'll get it done. But, you step into this role that you're looking for forever. And then this is how you have to deal with it. This is what you do. And this is the path you have to take. It's going to test Steven Silas early, Raphael early. His first move, the Covington move, good deal. I mean, I'm like, they got two first-round draft picks. As you said, they haven't had any in, like 5 years of first-round pick, because they dealt them away. So we'll see what it looks like, and we'll see who this team becomes, who this team will be. But let's talk about James Harden and the Nets. He and KD are apparently cool. I didn't know they were that close, but okay, they're cool. I just don't see Kyrie and James Harden being a compatible backcourt.
Agreed.
I don't see that. And also, if KD left Golden State because he wanted to kind of be the guy, why do you go get Harden? Why don't you wait to see if what you have works with what is there? But I don't see Kyrie and James being a great fit. What do you think about that?
I agree with you completely. From a Nets standpoint, the question I would ask, do we want to break up what we have? At least let us look to see if this works with what we have. Let us go possibly re-sign Joe Harris as our three-point sniper, and see if we can add other pieces to our club to see if what we have can work under Steve Nash and D'Antoni. Because if so, we don't have to gut our bench. We don't have to get rid of players we like, players who fit on this team. Because they made the playoffs. They did what they could without Kyrie and KD last year because of Cass LeVert and Spencer Dinwiddie. And I know all the Rocket fans here and folks locally are just completely trashing LeVert and Dinwiddie as if they're garbage players. I mean, I don't know if y'all don't watch basketball or something. I don't know. But James Harden and Kyrie, I just don't see fitting. They're true ball stoppers. And, working together in the Olympics ain't the same thing. It is not the same.
It's not the same thing.
It's not compared. It is not the same thing. And then KD, you have a great point. One of the reasons KD left to go to the Nets, left the Warriors, was because he wanted to be his own man. Be the man because he heard and still hears. You went to the Warriors and got your rings because you couldn't beat the Warriors. So why are you trying to add a third superstar who will take shots away from you, who will dribble the air of the ball for 20 seconds? You already got one of those in Kyrie.
Right.
And then the defense that the three of them play may be compatible to what you and I could do right now. So So, and you might play better defense than I do, Kim. So, I want to, cut you on that.
I got that college injury, that bad ankle, so maybe not.
From the Nets standpoint, it's similar to the Rockets standpoint. Wait, what's the rush?
Right. Why would they make a deal? And maybe it's because, of course, that reunites not just James with KD, but with Mike D'Antoni, right? But Mike D'Antoni's not the head coach, although he and Steve Nash had a lot of history. And I guess because James knows the system that, was played, I don't imagine that the Nets are going to go to what we saw here in Houston. I don't see them playing that particular jack of three at all costs. I don't know what they're going to do, but I don't see why it would make sense for them to bring in a James Harden, because I do think it'd be tough. I think it'd be tough for him and Kyrie. And we've seen it. We know what happens when it doesn't work well for James in the backcourt, right?
Right.
We've seen it.
It's where we are roughly 2 weeks away from training camp starting. Any team making a huge shakeup, either side, Rockets, Nets side. What's the hurry? Okay, James wants to go to the Nets. Good for James.
Yeah, hold tight, buddy.
Yeah, James is a player. He's not management. Yes, he's a superstar. We all know that. But I'm going to wait. If I'm the Rockets, I want the best deal possible for my franchise. Yeah, James, thank you. We know what you've done for this franchise for 8 years. As long as we're still paying you, you still play for us. Brooklyn, no, let's see what we have here first. And then let's see if we do need James, because we may not need him.
Right.
I thought the Nets were going to try to get Dru Holiday, but they didn't.
Oh, my gosh. We're going to talk about that. Good morning to Charles Drayden. Thank you for being here. Dwight Williams said, trade for a big. Who cares which one goes? Westbrook or Harden? You must rebuild. Well, I think if you keep one, you got to keep James, because I think that Russell has a few things we don't know about. He came into last season a little banged up, so he got off to a slow start. Then he kind of got into his groove a little bit, and then he got when we had the break for COVID, when they went to the bubble, he came in a little late because he unfortunately had suffered from COVID, and then he ended up pulling a hamstring or something. So he's had some injuries, right? And he's had some knee problems historically. So if you've got to pick one of the two, I think you pick. But I think you're right. I don't think this currently Dwight is a championship team. I didn't really think it was a championship team last year. It wasn't. And so it's, if they stood pat, the best they could do is maybe get to the playoffs. I think the roster needs some work. Charles, you got jokes. Says Kim can play D. I probably can, but not on that hard court. I tell you what. If the Serbian national team had played in the NBA league, they would have won the NBA championship.
Which team are we talking about there? I saw that pop up. I wonder which Serbian team are we talking about there?
Which Serbian team are you talking about? So if you'll tell us that.
See, Kim, you're global. Kim, look at that. You got so yeah, Chalk Talk is global.
Thanks to the World Wide Web. We are. Thank you very much. And let us know which Serbian team you're talking about. I'd like to know that. So let's talk about some of the other things that happened in the NBA yesterday. Chris Paul is going to Phoenix. That makes them a lot better. Sure.
That gives them a legit chance to be a playoff team next year. I think it's a good deal for CP. It's a good deal for Phoenix. OKC is continuing to stockpile assets till the cows come home, and eventually they'll turn those assets into players and have a legit chance to be something really good. But they're retooling. I'm noticing how that's becoming the phrase now in the NBA. Now you're not rebuilding. We are retooling our teams. So we'll see how that goes. Good for CP, Chris Paul, and Devin Booker. It's a short backcourt. It's a tough-minded backcourt. Devin Booker is a heck of a scorer. I think he can learn a few things from CP. Kelly Oubre and Ricky Rubio going to OKC. It should work off well for them. The Lakers getting Dennis Schroeder from OKC is interesting. I mean, I think it's a move that they are really signaling that they expect Rajon Rondo to sign elsewhere. And boy, would it be something if Rajon Rondo or Avery Bradley go to the Warriors? So
wow,
So that would be interesting. But Dennis Schroeder is a little different player than Rondo. He's more of a scorer than Rondo. Rondo is more of an assist guy. He's younger than Rondo. But yeah, it's good to see teams making moves. The Bucks making moves. 2 big moves that they did.
So let's talk about that Bucks move. One of the things that Giannis said is that he wanted to. He said he likes Milwaukee. He likes the city. He likes the organization. He wants to be there, but he wants to know that they are committed to winning. And what did they do? They went out and got him some help yesterday. And so
yes.
They got Holiday, which is I think a huge move for them. And they got the Kings, Bogdanovich.
Yep. Great moves for the Bucks. They gave up a lot for him. And I choose to believe Giannis had input in both these moves. So I choose to believe that he gave his okay, blessing, whatever you want to call it, and indicated, y'all do this, I am going to sign the extension and stay here for the next 5 years. I choose to believe that. Of course, the 5-year deal, he could opt out in maybe, I think, 3 years of that if he signs that. So, yeah, it's a risk. The Bucks are going for it. Rocket fans down here, with all the deals that Daryl Morey did, you said Rockets are going for it. Okay. So what's the difference now if you got another team going for it than your team going for it? The Bucks they're taking that shot. The draft picks are 25, 26, 27, majority of them. By that time, Giannis be gone. Yep, the picks then will be a factor. Could be very hot picks. Could be lottery picks. Right. Well, they may have 2 rings by then too.
Well, and you think about the moves that Dennis says, it can't no foreign player beat an American brother. Good morning, Dennis Glenn. Welcome.
Okay, Dennis, but Akeem was a foreign player.
Yeah, that's true. He was. Akeem was a foreign player. One of the things the Bucks did by bringing in Dru Holiday, Bogdanovich, and also even Justin James apparently is coming in a sign and trade deal from the Kings. It addresses their need for more shooting, which is one of the issues that they had around Giannis. So they instantly become better. I'm really curious about these next few days. I can't wait now to see what happens in the draft tomorrow. I wasn't as, excited about it before. I always, of course, pay attention to it because the team I cover hadn't had a pick in so long in the first round. But I'm really curious as to who this Rockets team will get in the first round. And this is obviously a very different year. We didn't have a complete college basketball season. So whoever you get, you don't really know how they're coming in. There's so many uncertainties. What kind of player would you like to see the Rockets draft with that first round pick tomorrow?
I like Precious Achiuwa from Memphis. 6'9", 6'10". He was a freshman this past year at Memphis, best player in the American Athletic Conference. Versatile, not a great 3-point shooter right now, but you can learn that. But he can do a lot of things on the basketball court. I like Isaiah Stewart from Washington.
I'm kind
of curious to see what direction I think they're going to go with a front court player.
Yeah.
But it's the draft. This year's draft is not filled with superstars, impact players. I think you can get some role players, some guys who can show up your bench, and Rockets could use that for sure. So, yeah, I'm kind of curious to see what they're going to do, but I wouldn't expect whoever they pick, whoever Portland picks for them, to have a massive impact next year. But I am curious to see what they do because, keep in mind, whoever they get in the draft, they're only going to have 2 weeks before training camp. So the rookies this year are going to have a shorter time getting acclimated to the NBA lifestyle and NBA practices and things like that. So I see you, Dennis. Okay, I see you. You qualified it now.
So here's the thing. I think it also will be very telling. I mean, I can't imagine that they don't try to get some size, because we can say that, I think the small ball experiment is probably over the way that we saw it in the past. They've got to do something a little more convincing.
It'll be reduced. It will be reduced. Yeah.
Because it can't be completely over because they've traded everybody away.
Right.
But it will be reduced. And so you're going to have to get somebody. You're going to have to clearly a front court player. You got to get some help to PJ, because while he plays big, he is not. You know? Right. And I guess from what I can tell, they bring back Daniel House, of course, but he's a front court player, but he's not a big. So do they go get a big or just a bigger front court, a bigger four, instead of really getting a true center? I don't know. I'll be interested to see what they do. I
think based on the success of Bam Adebayo in Miami, you kind of want a big like that, a good passing big, Jokic in Denver, a guy who can pass, who the offense can go through sometimes as a facilitator. Steven Silas did mention he would like a big who can finish at the rim as well. So
yeah,
ironically, the big that Steven Silas likes is the big as the Rockets traded away in Clint Capella. So because Steven Silas talked about he wanted a big who can finish and be mobile, pick and roll, and finish well at the basket. Well, they did have that. So
no, they had that. Well, you know what? The Texans had DeAndre Hopkins. Not to compare the two, right? Capella was no Hopkins, but I'm just saying, we sometimes get rid of people and then we come back. I know you're not a big football guy, but I know that was a horrendous move.
And the reason for it was what? Because Bob didn't want to pay DeAndre, or because DeAndre wanted more money, or what was the logic behind that Bob convinced him of?
Allegedly, it was because they had to be able to pay Deshaun. They needed to give him a new contract, and that DeAndre wanted one. But I believe in the word on the street is it was more personal, which is not uncommon because that's how Bill O'Brien operated. He did a lot of things, made a lot of decisions personally, which is why you weren't going to be successful, because you can't make personal decisions in a business environment and help be successful.
And that goes back to one of the things we said at the beginning of this show. If you don't like the owner, that's a personal thing between you and the owner. That has nothing to do with you.
Turn down $50 million.
Getting the job on the play. Your job is to play for your teammates and the coaches. I don't like the ownership. Okay, so my relationship with the owner.
He's been the owner for a few years. He's the same owner that agreed to trade away Chris Paul because you didn't like him. I mean, here's the thing that we know about James Harden. Is he one of the top 5 players in the league? Yes. But we also know is they've done everything you asked them to do.
Yes.
Right? You wanted Dwight Howard. You brought in Dwight Howard. That didn't work. And then y'all couldn't even speak. I mean, it just gets to be almost so childish and petty. Things weren't working out great that year with Kevin McHale. They cut the strings on Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
He was out. Okay. You had Bickerstaff interim for that year. We knew that really wasn't going to last. And they brought in D'Antoni, a guy that basically let you even ascend to a different level of stardom. You wanted Chris Paul. They went out and got Chris Paul, made all the moves, to get Chris Paul. Chris Paul, he even let you be a part of his State Farm commercials. So you were cool until you weren't.
Oh, you went there. Okay.
Right. He let you be a part of his State Farm commercials. So then y'all were cool until you weren't. And then it fell apart. Okay, so we went out and got Russell Westbrook. You want that to happen. They got it. Then what? I mean, now you mad?
Now you want to go somewhere else? Yeah, so you're saying the one constant thread in all of that is who?
It's James Harden.
Mm-hmm. And now he wants out. He wants to
now
get
he's like, this is not enough for me. Yeah,
he wants to go to.
Right.
Okay, well,
he wants to go to, right.
Yeah. Well, you're the player. You're a superstar. We all know that. But we're owners. We're management. So we're going to do what's best for us as a franchise. And if that means keeping you until we get the best deal for us, that's what we're going to do. Because I don't think you're going to say, no, I don't want to get paid anymore. I'm going to sit out, take my money. That's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen. But here's the other thing. And I know that there have been some talks, but nothing really serious. I don't know why the Nets make that move, right?
Agreed.
I don't know. It doesn't make sense for them. It definitely doesn't make sense for the Rockets because unless they get some some other teams involved. The Nets don't have anything that make the Rockets dramatically better in terms of that young dynamite, dynamic player and then picks. So that deal is probably not going to happen. So what's he going to do? Pout? Okay. So now Steve Silas has got to deal with that foolishness, apparently. Or you're going to be professional and you come in and do your job. So I think we'll just have to wait and see a couple of things, who the Rockets end up getting from Portland tomorrow night in the draft, and then what the tone is. We won't get a chance to go in person anymore and watch any of the practice, but we'll talk to people on those Zoom press conferences as when training camp starts in a couple of weeks and get a sense of what happens. In talking about basketball as well, the NCAA has said that March Madness will be played in a bubble in 2021. What are your thoughts on that?
Technically, they say a controlled environment. It's not going to be a bubble. It's not going to be a bubble. They're trying to be quick about that, saying it's not going to be the same thing that the NBA did in Orlando. It won't be a bubble. But yeah, they're going to try to have everything within the state of Indiana as much as possible within the city of Indianapolis, because that's ironically headquarters for the NCAA. One, and the men's Final Four is taking place in the 2021 Final Four will be in Indianapolis. So controlled environment. They're trying to get agreements for all the hotels and things like that. But there's plenty of basketball venues within driving distance of Indianapolis. That's on the fella side. The women's Final Four will be in San Antonio. They haven't announced what they're going to do yet for them. It's a little bit different because on the women's side, the first two rounds are on campus sites. But in terms of control, and you want to make sure everybody's having the same testing protocol, I think it's inevitable. They're going to try to move to a controlled environment. So we have to look at Texas, assuming they want to keep the Final Four next year in San Antonio and not move it somewhere. Then you got to look at what other places within Texas, because I'm not sure how many arenas or venues in San Antonio could accommodate that many games on the women's side. So you may have to have some games in Houston or Austin or Dallas to make it all work. And I think that it's going to happen because Austin is going to be a future site for, I think, first two rounds or regional, and the same in Dallas-Fort Worth. So I think it's going to happen. But no, Kim, shame on you for saying bubble. It's not a bubble. They want to push controlled environment. So
it's that we'll deal with the semantics. A controlled environment. It sounds like a bubble to me. It worked for the most part, but here's the thing: will the teams come and go, or once they get there, will they stay until they're out? Because typically the teams come back to the campus, have a couple days of class, and then move on to the next round in the next place. But would they just go back and forth? And so what's the point of having a controlled environment, i.e. bubble, unless you're going to just stay there the whole time and then you leave when you're eliminated? So I think it'll be interesting to see what happens, but it is a reminder, everybody, that COVID is still amongst us. It is running rampant, depending on where you live in the world or in the country. Here in Texas, we're seeing the numbers kind of explode again. So don't get too comfortable. Continue to wear your masks, keep socially distanced, and wash your hands. I just find it really interesting that in 2020, we having to tell people to wash their hands.
And that's still an issue, Kim. Good hygiene is important. And every game I go to, I always see, once I leave the restroom, I always see Rockets game, college game, high school, I see fellas just walk straight out of the restroom, are washing their hands. So 2020, yes, it is, but folks still do not wash their hands with soap and water. Yuck.
On that note, Kris Gardner, thank you for always jumping in, and it wasn't as last minute as I sometimes get you, but I appreciate you and for you keeping me up to date on things that I don't know. And so we will continue to monitor this NBA situation and see what's going to happen. If anything happens with the Rockets or with James Harden, we will let you know. You can follow Kris on Twitter, and you can also follow me here on Twitter, and we will keep you posted. Kris, thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon, my friend. Thank you for joining me and for sharing your insight.
Glad to do it as always. Glad to be on part of the show.
All right, thanks a lot. That's Kris Gardner, everybody, from the Houston Roundball Review. If you're not watching him, if you're not subscribed, I encourage you to do that. And Charles says exactly about, the social distancing and wear your mask, right? We have some work to do, right? We still have to find a way to mitigate this virus. It is still here. Before we go, I just want to also jump into a little bit what's happening around our nation politically. We are still waiting for the current occupant of the Oval Office to I don't really care that he concedes. I don't know that Joe Biden, the president-elect, what cares whether or not he concedes. I think what's most important is that there's a transfer of information so that the new team can really get their transition going beyond what they've been able to do on their own. And so I just think I encourage you all to just stay vigilant and pay attention. Here's the other thing. A lot of you voted. I'm going to say everybody that watches Chalk Talk, you guys all voted because that's what we do here. But let's stay engaged. Make sure that you're registered to vote. Make sure that you're voting whenever there's an election in your area, right? Start looking at what matters, what's happening, and make sure we have to have this same energy for midterms. And if any of you are watching this show and you live in Georgia, we need you to get out and vote in that Senate race, because what has been made very clear is that if the Republicans, and I don't typically say who you should vote for, and I'm not telling you who to vote for, but this is what I will say. If the Republicans control the Senate, Mitch McConnell has made it very clear that he has no intention of really working with a Biden administration. So whatever that's about, we knew that he took that position. He had that posture when Barack Obama was in office. He did everything but say, I'm not going to help the black man, right? I want him to be a one-term president and want him to not be successful. So to me, that's one of the most un-American things and positions you can take. Because if you care about the country, you need for the president to be successful. And so when you are so determined to keep a particular administration from not being successful, then you're not really trying to be about what's good for the country. So pay attention, stay engaged. The work is not done. It is only beginning. And listen, let your representatives hear from you, your state officials, your city officials, your county officials, and of course, your national officials. Let them hear from you. If you live in the state of Texas, we have a gubernatorial race coming up next year. Let's pay attention. Let's talk about who's the candidate going to be, because we've got to have some change in leadership. We need people who are going to work for our interests and our concerns in our community and our families and our neighborhoods and with our businesses, with our schools and our kids. And the people who aren't willing to do that, it's time for them to move on. And let's not put others in those spots. So thank you as always for being a part of Chalk Talk. I appreciate you engaging and being a part of the show. And let me hear from you. If there's something that you'd like for me to talk about on this show, just you can reach out to me on Facebook or Twitter, and you can always email me. It's simple, kim@kimydavis.com. So follow me on Twitter. I'm really active with news and updates throughout the week, and also on Instagram. And I will see you all next week on Chalk Talk. We will talk anything major happens between now and then. You'll hear from me. I'll keep you updated. But in the meantime, make sure that you wear your mask. Make sure that you're practicing social distancing and really good hygiene, and do something kind for yourself. Also do something kind for somebody else. Hey, Carol Justice, thank you so much. I appreciate you being a part of the show, and thank you for that. We do need to stay informed, and we need to stay engaged. Have a great week, everybody. I'll see you next time. Bye.